In this video on how to shop the Gilded Age, I'm going to present to you 10 still existing suppliers of the very wealthy members of New York's Gilded Age high society, such as the Vanderbilts, the Astors, the Carnegies, and so on. Learn which Gilded Age items you can buy where and at what sometimes surprisingly low prices. Hello and welcome to my channel. This space is for you if you appreciate real exquisiteness beyond the omnipresent branded goods. Join me in the discovery of mostly unknown, really beautifully crafted products, as well as in indulging special, precious experiences. What the Gilded Age obviously was also very known for, and what interests us ladies a lot and what impresses us also when watching the HBO series, is obviously the fashion and the opulent dresses. And when it comes to those very special dresses for those special occasions like the balls and the big events they had, then most of the dresses came directly from Paris for these fine, wealthy ladies. And these were from the House of Worth, from Charles Frederick Worth. He's considered to be the father of haute couture, and in fact he was the first fashion brand. He was the first one to put his name in the waistband of his dresses. He considered that they are pieces of art, and just like a painting is signed, his dresses would be signed. And he was right, because those dresses were just fantastic. And how did he succeed? Well, it went over royalty. His wife had the idea to present those dresses to Pauline von Metternich. She was the wife of the Austrian ambassador to the French court, and she was a very good friend of Empress Eugenie of France. And Mrs. Worth thought that if they could convince her to wear the dresses, then they would catch the eye of the Empress, and that is exactly what happened. So Pauline von Metternich, she was lucky. She got the first dresses at 300 livres, which was quite cheap for that time for this material especially. And then Empress Eugenie, she really caught fire and she wanted those dresses. And once all the imperial and royal courts of Europe were wearing those dresses, then of course those nouveaux riches, the arrivistes in America, who could very easily afford those dresses, they ordered those dresses to impress the old society, for whom those dresses were far too flamboyant, because they were rather wearing the darker colors, more subdued, you know. And Worth, he was really going for colors. We can have a look now. What can we buy today from him? I mean, you know, it's difficult to find Worth designs today because most of his dresses are in museums or in collections. And I could not believe it. I went on Etsy.com and look what I found. I found an opera coat, this one here. It is from the Gilded Age. It is from 1896, late in the Gilded Age. And look at this impressive work. Of course, you see it's not in such good state, but you know, they are collector's pieces and it's just incredible. You see the price here in euros. I think they attribute me always to Germany with my IP address. This is why I have it in euros. And I also found this wonderful riding jacket. Look at this waistline. Of course, they were wearing corsets, and I'm just imagining how to ride in a corset, because I'm a rider and I cannot imagine. But look at this absolute fantastic work. And you can buy those pieces, and look, there it is, his label, as I explained earlier. Isn't that fantastic? So look around on Etsy.com, on First Dips, on other auction houses. This is just fantastic. I'm so excited that I could find that. What you can also get is patterns of ball gowns of this period, and you can have them sewn. And there is one lady who is a costume researcher and designer here on YouTube, Cathy. I will link her, Cathy Hays. I will link her channel down below, and she researched some of the dresses. And it was also Charles Frederick Worth who started using special textiles for his designs, and they came from Tassinari and Chattel, which is the oldest silk and gold and silver thread weaving society in Lyon. And the second thing we will address, besides the fashion, are the textiles that were used for upholstering furniture, for tapestries, for curtains, etc. And Lyon was the capital of the silk weaving since the 17th century. It was François Ier who initiated that. They were part of the Silk Road, and they became so important because Lyon is situated between two rivers, the Rhône and the Saône. So that was really important. So it was a customs point, and this is how it developed, and it's still known for the best fabrics today. And Tassinari and Chattel, they still exist, and you can order from them. Now you have to know, they're still using the old techniques, they're still weaving on the old looms. So depending on the design of the fabric, they need about 1 day to make 2.7 up to 4 centimeters of their fabrics. So you can imagine the prices, and the customers are very rich people, or museums like the Chateau de Versailles, when they are recreating the tapisserie or the curtains and the upholstery. But this is the very supplier that those very rich and wealthy American families ordered from. They had their houses full of those really, so precious fabrics. Have a look at that. You can buy them on etoffe.com. I will put the link down below. Look at this website, look at the prices. I know that the White House has ordered also from them when they restored some furniture. So they're really, really special pieces. And what you can try to find is if you find maybe old samples, but then they have to be obviously in a good state, but you can order from them. I think that is really, really impressive. And what would a ball gown be without the matching jewels? And one of the oldest New York jewelers was Isaac Marcon, and later his company was called Ball Black and Company. And he made beautiful jewels, but of course there were also the European brands, and we can just assume that those rich American ladies, they ordered also from the same jewelers than European royalty. And there was the house of Meleriot di Meller, who was the jeweler of Empress Eugenie, and they made beautiful, beautiful pieces. And of course this house still exists today, Place Vendôme, Paris, and you can buy from them. Look at those beautiful pieces. But of course this is not for the budget of everybody, but there is an American costume jewelry brand, a vintage costume jewelry brand called Trifari and Crown, and they have a collection that is called the Empress Eugenie collection. They are book pieces, and they are wonderful pieces, and they are affordable, and you can find them online on websites like Etsy, Ruby Lane, or like First Dips. So have a look there. We can also find very nice copies of tiaras and pendants and necklaces from an Indian company on Etsy. Just have a look here. They work with silver but with real diamonds, but I think the prices compared to what they are offering are really impressive. So when it comes to jewelry, I think there are many ways of getting the same style, and that for different budgets, from very expensive, the real thing, to less expensive, very fine vintage and very well crafted costume jewelry. If you are not new to this channel, you might also remember from my Vienna video that I have presented to you the jewels of Empress Elizabeth, and there was a painting from Franz Xaver Winterhalter that I showed you where she wears those diamond stars in her hair, and on that painting she also wears a Worth dress, an impressive one. But also the jewels are from A.E. Köchert, which is a Viennese jeweler. So this is also a jeweler that was really, furnishing jewels for royalty all over Europe. And I'm sure that some of the American wealthy families, the ladies, ordered from there as well, because Empress Elizabeth from Austria, she was also a beauty icon of her time. So I think that really impressed them. Well, what does a lady of the 19th century need to go with a ball gown? That is obviously a fan. And those historical fans, you can find some of them really easily on online auction houses, and that is really something I would recommend you if you have elegant occasions when you go out or when you go to the opera. And on Catawiki you can really find interesting
items like those fans. As you can see, there is this original historical fan hand painted with mother of pearls from the late 19th century, so the period that we are looking at. And isn't that a wonderful piece? There was also another one. So this is also from Napoleon III era, so also our time. And look at this beautiful lace, and also with mother of pearl. Beautiful pieces, and this one comes without a reserve price, so currently it is at 50 euros, and the auction will be over in 9.5 hours. So it's very probable that it's going to stay under the experts' estimate value of 150.
Now what we also learn in the HBO series The Gilded Age is that the family, that are in fact the Vanderbilts, that they had a French chef. Now one would think, what did they eat, what did they get served, and what were they serving their guests? That must have been quite impressive. So there is one book which was the book of the time when it comes to French cuisine. It was published in 1873 and it was written by Alexandre Dumas, yes, the very same author who wrote The Three Musketeers, and it's called Grand Dictionnaire de Cuisine. There's also an English translation by Louis Coleman that you can buy, and there you find recipes, but you also find description of utensils, but also on etiquette, on fine dining. And I think this is a reference book if you really want to dig into that and really get the feel of this period of time, and if you want to recreate some of the scenes. Can be fun, you know, if you dress up and you have a Gilded Age evening, a theme party, maybe that is something you want to research. And the book is not too expensive, it costs a little over $66 and you can buy it on Amazon. And obviously there's no fine dinner and no ball without a good champagne. And if you ask yourself, what champagnes did they drink back then? Which brand was en vogue? Which champenois, which winemaker did they buy from? Well, it was Dumigny & Co. Well, this brand doesn't exist anymore. It was bought by Bollinger or Bollinger. And yeah, so if you buy Bollinger, then they will probably still have the vineyards that belonged to Dumigny. And also who existed already back then was Röderer. So if you buy from those two brands, Bollinger or Röderer, these are the two brands you would have to go for. And if we talk about anything to set a nice tablescape, we of course talk also finest glassware. Look at the picture of the scene here in the HBO series, and when I saw that scene, I thought, I know those glasses, where they're coming from, because I have the same. And I found them online on an online auction house, and I can tell you they are Murano glasses. And they are not as expensive as one would think, and I can just recommend. So this in this case is Murano, and but I'm sure they also had Baccarat and Saint Louis. They are old French brands that you can still buy from, but you can also buy antique glasses. So I would definitely say look for them on Catawiki. They very often offer them, and it's really, really impressive. What we can also see in this dinner scene is the chandelier, the huge chandelier hanging over the table. And obviously there are impressive chandeliers that you can buy in Austria from Lobmeier. I will link to my video, my Vienna video up here, so you can have a look at this very shop. Here is the Sacher chandelier, which is exactly from the period of the Gilded Age, but of course there are many more designs of period chandeliers that you can buy today, but of course you can also try to find antique ones. Now, after dinner, what was really important, and even some ladies started smoking cigars. So in the 19th century, fine cigars were really requested by the fine gentlemen, especially by the gentlemen. And two Cuban cousins, they just had, you know, a Cuban brand and a Cuban factory, quite simple, and they had the idea, well, if there is this request from England but also the United States, then let's call our brand Byron, like Lord Byron the poet. And this brand was really successful back then, and believe it or not, it was revived. So today you can buy Byron cigars like in the Gilded Age. So here is the website, and they have cigars of different price categories, of different tastes, so for you to make your choice. I hope there were some interesting discoveries for you. This is what this channel is about. So if you really like exquisiteness, if you're interested in mostly unknown, beautifully crafted products beyond the omnipresent branded products, then this space is for you.